All right. Awesome. We are back. We are live. I had a lot of fun live streaming last time with YouTube, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this again. We're here with what's newest in Steel Aces. It's been probably over a year since the last time I featured this game, along with their lead developer Bulldog, and the game has made some leaps and bounds. And so I thought I would show off a little bit of it live with you guys today. Let me know how everything's working, if our bitrate is good, if our sound is good, and we'll talk a little bit about our game and then we'll kind of go from there. But here's our hangar. You can see there's a lot more vehicles added since last time and some newer features and a little Kickstarter blurb up in that right window. Steel Aces launched live on Kickstarter on Friday and blasted through the first goal in just 17 hours. So I think that says to me a lot about the games that people want to see and play. That's really, really exciting. So this game is developed out of Germany. This is kind of the first entry into the genre from the Western world. You know, Armored Warfare and World of Tanks and Gaijin are all companies out of Russia or nearby countries, cis region countries as it were, Belarus and what have you. So the game audiences and the developer styles are a bit different, and so I'm really, really excited for the latest entry into the space. And I'm going to introduce Bulldog. He's the lead developer and the CEO, and we're going to talk a little bit about his vision for the game as well as the newest updates. So let her roll, Bulldog.
Yeah, lovely to be back here again. Just a quick mention, you said lead developer and CEO. In this case, the developer is actually on the company, so we don't have some big corporate overload behind us that's, you know, pushing us to hit all the good KPIs, basically, right? This game is really made by a small enthusiast team, by people who actually play these games. And that's really the core idea, right? Steel Aces is a tactical tank shooter, and basically the goal is to build the tank game we always wanted, without all the issues from predatory monetization, without pay to win, without the gambling, without loot boxes.
Right.
That's really the base premise.
And that's been kind of one of the bigger challenges is like, how do we, if you're gonna make a game and you need the resources, a lot of the stuff that's out there, when you're trying to find investors, like you talk a little bit about it on your Kickstarter, like we don't want to sell out, right? Like when you, that's kind of half the issues in the game space nowadays, you know what I mean? Like why are all the AAA titles, the monetization is super cranked up. It's kind of when you take investments from, like the VC players in the space want to see as much profit in the short term as possible, and so typically you agree, and they have a bit of control over your company, and they'll say, hey, we need to do this, we need to crank that up. And so I think a lot of especially the mobile game space, the monetization is crazy.
Oh yeah,
is that kind of what you guys have run into as well?
I mean, I can only disclose so much, right? But we don't have any publisher deals. We don't have any investors that are pressuring us to like break even as soon as possible. We don't have that. But I can tell you that in the game space, it is common to have a contract that puts an extremely tight leash on developers, that usually takes creative controllers away as well. And that's when you end up with mechanics like, you know, loot boxes and gambling, because quite often the developers only do what they're told, right? They don't actually make the decisions. It's someone in a corporate office that's very well ventilated with a really nice table that says we need to increase this KPI. And it's a number, maybe the average revenue that they make per user on a daily basis, something like that. If that number goes up, things are good. The happiness of the player is not a KPI.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. They don't care about it. It's hard cash that's coming in, and that's really where we see all the negative tendencies coming from. And we just want to stay away from all of that, really.
So what are, because we talk about like some of the big highlights when you look at, like, say the Kickstarter page, for example, like no pay to win, we want to reward skill, and so coming from the tank genre space and wanting something better, how does no pay to win, how do you sort of produce that from such a concept? Like what is that going to look like in Steel Aces?
I think we're really talking about the core things that set Steel Aces apart from other games in the tank market. That's really what that is leading towards. I suggest we hop into a game and then we just yap about that, because it's basically 4 main concepts to mention, and I just, want to step through them, I think.
Yeah,
Or what do you think?
Yeah, let's game and yap.
Which one are we gonna take?
Ooh, okay.
Pick your poison. Or maybe chat.
Yeah, let the chat ask. We have a lot of. I don't think we have enough German tanks in this game. I think some of the interesting. So the green are going to be the collector's vehicles, right?
Potentially. It's mostly green at the moment, means not necessarily part of the regular research tree. It's a bunch of vehicles are preliminary, like the Panzer IV F1 doesn't actually belong at rank 3. It's going to move into rank 4, but for the moment it's sort of ranked down as a placeholder to fill a gap, really. I mean, we could roll the Yak Tiger.
Yak Tiger, yeah, let's go. Sure.
It's smooth enough. As you can see here, we basically have 3 ammo types, and this already shows a bit of some of the upgrade system, right? Like, the idea is we upgrade ammunition. You don't get like a completely new gun where the standard gun is just bad. You unlock new ammunition, so there's a smoother progression curve. You're not going to have a scenario where you get a vehicle that has a completely useless, rubber gun, basically, a pellet gun.
Right.
But now this is basically against NPC agents, so these are essentially computer controlled. This is the first iteration. We actually tested this in the playtest last week. It's really because we wanted to test them with real players, right? Because they have to feel sort of natural, they have to act at least in a sensible way. We don't want stupid bots just sitting around, basically, right? But anyways, basically, what sets Steel Aces apart? There's multiple points, but I think the first one of them is really that armor matters, right? As you saw here, I managed to block that shot from the T-29 quite nicely, and the idea is aiming should be rewarded, right? Like, we need consistency in ballistics, we need that you get consistent results. So there's no RNG on penetration. There is some randomness on where you shoot, but guns are quite accurate, right? You could see there was basically no chance I was going to miss that T-29 before.
Right.
And
yeah,
that's
RNG
really the...
Like with
you can see here.
Accuracy is really different in this game compared to, like, I'll use, because a lot of people come in and they're either like World of Tanks players or War Thunder players, but typically, my audience was largely World of Tanks for a long time. But the difference in the accuracy makes it's a massive difference in terms of being less frustrating and kind of like rewarding. You're learning all these aspects about your vehicle. You have the penetration of the different guns, you have the way that different ammunition acts, you have all the attributes of the enemy vehicles, and when your shot just gets yoked into some random space because of the high variance within that reticle, I find that's just really frustrating. After the big nerf in like 2014, I found that it was just like, I don't really want to get serious about this game anymore. I'm just gonna try to have fun, and because I'm streaming it, it's fun, but like in between that and like the matchmaker and the increasing pay to win elements and different things like Antheon mentioned in the chat, it's like the combo. There are things that are fun, but there's the combo's very unpleasant because you're seeing not just like the +1 -1 matchmaker that you can see over on the left, but also like I said, the armor relevance and the more accurate gun experience makes a big difference for me anyway.
It has to be consistent, right? It's important for the new player experience. I think it's super important that when you do things a certain way, you get rewarded in a consistent manner.
Right.
So you don't sometimes deal damage and another time you don't. So when you pen a certain part, once you're always going to go through that armor, right? That guy just realized he's getting flanked, but he's prioritizing another target, so we're just gonna, fall back and let them plink away at each other. But I think this leads nicely into the next point, right?
Yeah.
The idea is that pacing is slower, and that's very deliberate. There's a much larger emphasis on tactical decisions. This is not a racing game, right? It's about making the right decisions and sort of being able to look ahead, right? It's not about reacting faster than your opponents necessarily. It's seeing something happening before it actually happens, right?
I
So
noticed
positioning
that for
is super
sure.
relevant.
Like the last few tests where in World of Tanks you can really quickly adjust and shimmy and you reverse very quickly, and so it's really easy to get yourself out of situations, and in Steel Aces the tanks move a lot more tank-like, and it forces you to be more aware and more deliberate about the actions that you take, which I think is also, at first I was like, oh, I can't like screw around, you know what I mean? But like, it was actually, I found it like quickly building skill and rewarding me for the skill. Like the more that I learn, like when to wait versus when to go in, because there's nothing, you can't just skitter around and change your mind. You have to act very deliberately, which is a lot more, it feels like your combat, it matters, you know what I mean? Like your placement really matters.
Which, yeah, I mean, I think this leads into the next point, really, right? Like, we don't want frustration mechanics. So there's no artillery in the game.
Right.
There's no close air support. So no planes, helicopters, any stuff like that. That's really asymmetric. That doesn't give you a chance to fight back. We don't have that.
Right.
And as you can see here, we don't have premium ammunition. So right now there's no economy system in the game, really. But we're not going to monetize your in-game combat ability, right? As you can see, we have an AP or APHE and an APCR round. The APCR round does have significantly better penetration at essentially close range and flat angles. But when you look at the angled performance, it's actually worse. So at 60 degrees, the full caliber round is actually better than the APCR round.
Right.
And the same holds true for long ranges. Like at 500 meters, the APCR round is actually worse in every single case. And it also does less damage. So it's really a choice that you have to make, and it has to be correct in that situation. If you just spam the APCR round, there will be a lot of shots that either deal significantly less damage and you just sort of knock yourself out by getting out-traded, or you just don't pen your shots because you lose too much pen or performance at range, because the APCR round has much higher drag, right? It's a light core that flies at a higher velocity, so it punches through armor better at close range, but only if it's flat, really, right?
Right. So it's really, like, you have to, understanding how the ammo works has a lot to do with success.
Yes.
And so it's not just...
It's rewarding,
yeah,
right?
It's not just press 2 for an immediate advantage like in World of Tanks, like... If you're smart, and it's not like this is super complicated, and it does tell you in game what the ammo does and how it functions best. You know, like when you tapped over it, it says, "Hey, weak against high angles," right? So it rewards you using the correct ammunition for the correct situation, rather than just pressing 2 and paying for an advantage in game, which I think is something that the players have been asking for forever. Like, why don't can we balance this a little bit better? You know, but focusing on balance rather than I think like pay to win or impulse choices is gonna be just an insanely nice difference.
I'd be able to sneak around there because I need a decent angle in the IS, right? Like this is another thing. Like an IS-1 doesn't have armor in World of Tanks, right? It's cheese.
Right.
It actually has pretty good armor, right? Like it's really well armored. It has more armor than a Tiger, right? So that's really something where, you know, you have to know the armor layouts, right? And as you might see with this, like, giant World War II heavy tank slugfest here, right? Steel Aces is historically authentic. That's really, I think, the keyword here.
Yeah.
We're not trying to build, like, a World War II tank training simulator, right? That's not the point. But we're trying to build... a game that has all of the cool tanks that we all love and like, but also just represents the vehicles that don't get the spotlight, really, right? Like we have Romanian prototype tank destroyer in the game, right? Something that's basically completely ignored in every other game that I know of, right?
Yeah,
like no one would think of Romania as a World War II tank nation, but
and
they did.
Yeah, and like the Marisol
They had
setting the
domestic
blueprint for the
designs,
head
yeah.
was pretty dynamic.
Of course, they didn't have the industry, right? But like they still made do with what they had, and they had, I think, you know, pretty smart designs considering the circumstances. And Steel Aces really wants to, you know, give a spotlight to those vehicles as well, because it's history, it's tanks, and they're cool, right? They have just unique gameplay that you might not be able to get somewhere else.
I think the concept that, like, it talks about on the Kickstarter especially, like, so a lot of divisions, and one of the things that you talked about before is, one of the questions that I get most often, and that's, like, fake tanks And with that historical authenticity that you guys are looking for, we're not going to have like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle skins, and also no like just ridiculous made up, you know, your Jagdpanzer E100 or like a Chinese rocket tank stuff. It's
Yes,
nice
I mean,
to stick to
specifically the Jagdpanzer E100. We're not going to have a Jagdpanzer E100,
right.
but there's probably going to be a Stuck E100, which stands for Assault Gunner E100. It was never built, unfortunately, but there are pretty good blueprints. Essentially, they showcase the overall layout of the vehicle and how the casemate would have looked, and from that we can essentially reconstruct how the vehicle would have looked, right?
So just so long
That's
as
really
there's
the idea
enough
here.
historical support for a prototype or for a blueprint design, then it can be included.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I think is super sick. What do you think is like the blueprint tank that you're looking forward to the most putting into the game? Like, I'm a big E100 fan, so I can't wait for the E100 to show up, but like, if you as a developer had one that you're looking forward to featuring, what would that be?
That's really hard to say because, like, the thing is, we have a lot of vehicles that are already planned, right? And I know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Come on, spoil it a
So
little
I can-
bit. Spoiler alert!
Yeah. Really hard to say. I mean, personally, I'm like, the reason I have the nickname Bulldog is because I like the Bulldog tank, right? And there's a lot of Bulldog-based vehicles that a lot of people may not think of, like Brazil, South America. They actually used a lot of Bulldogs and just retrofitted them into, well, full-blown, in quotation marks, lightweight main battle tanks.
Yeah.
And I think those are going to be extremely interesting, to be honest.
Cool.
As we speak of the Bulldog, we can actually play around with that one.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Somebody has a question about RNG, and I know that was something that we hadn't quite mentioned yet, but the RNG experience, I'll speak about World of Tanks, is really significant in that game. Plus minus 25% for damage, for penetration, and then of course I think a lot of people, when they say RNG, they mean like the accuracy. Could you talk a little bit about your vision to have with steel aces and how that's different?
Yeah, I just have to quit because I accidentally pressed the wrong button. These are the static
okay.
AI opponents,
Yeah, we
right?
have tow missiles
of course,
already.
we want the dynamic ones, right?
There's already anti-tank guided missiles in there. We'll show that later.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah, getting back to the question. Sorry, what was that?
Oh, yeah, somebody had asked about the tow missiles
tank.
and those to be here. Yeah. So we were talking about somebody had brought up RNG.
Oh, RNG, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, regarding penetration, so actual ballistic performance, there is no RNG. So like, the M339 APBC is always going to go through 173 millimeters at 0 meters at 0 degrees every single time, consistently, always, no whens and buts. There is randomness on where the shot goes, right? That is the case.
Sure.
That's kind of required though for anti-cheat reasons. Like, it's actually it's required from a game design standpoint to a certain extent. However, guns are much more accurate. So essentially, the way that the shot is placed inside the circle is much stricter than World of Tanks. So technically, I think I can maybe give you some graphical assets later, but the idea is that out of 10,000 shots, you maybe have like 4 that essentially land at the edge of the circle. So it's really, really, really hard to like completely whiff shots, right? It rewards aiming, and if you aim well, you will hit your shots, right?
Yeah.
Also, as you can see here, I'm actually shooting full caliber AP on the Bulldog, not because it has the best performance, but because it has enough performance for the target I'm shooting at, and it has better damage output, right? The full caliber AP round is simply larger, so it does more damage, and obviously I want to maximize the damage output. I gotta think a little, because my 2 teammates are here. It's probably best if I flank these guys. The Tiger is a one-shot. I don't necessarily want to take a head-on fight with the Tigers because they'll just tear me apart, right? Like they have the damage output. But we just sneak away from here.
No, you definitely don't. People don't get different RNG in this game, and you're not going to be able to pay for an advantage like having better RNG or like vehicles that do more damage or are better, Felix.
Yes, that's really the idea, right? Like you can't pay for power. There will be collector's vehicles. We can actually have a look at some of them later,
Okay.
because some of them are already in the game. But the general idea is usually if it's a collector's vehicle, either it's something quirky or really unique, like a tog or something, right? Like you can't put a tog in the regular research tree and force people to grind through it, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll probably go to jail for
Pain.
like psychological abuse or torture or something. Oh, wait until the other guys move over. Sneak up on him.
We can now capture the enemy base.
I mean, their goal is to capture the enemy base, right?
Okay.
And right now they don't have a specific memory of where enemies are, right?
Okay.
Like they may turn the turret, but like I'm abusing the bots a little bit now, right? Like a real player obviously wouldn't do this,
Right.
but it's the first iteration, right? I'm not above admitting that they're not perfect, but you know, I mean, some players play like this, right?
Right. Well, Waz, to answer your questions, we're talking about a little bit about the bots. Like this is a PvP game at its base, right? So it was intentionally going to be
yes.
PvP, but we wanted to have PvE story mode. So like imagine like Thunder Run or something that's like it's actually pretty imba. And if we could have NPCs play enemies in certain things, you don't have to worry so much about the balance for both players. And that's a feature for later because it takes some more development. So that's why it's different. For a PvP game, I think the PvE chapter is like the story mode PvE campaigns from real life tank battles is a separate feature.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
And talking about that, really, I think we can talk a little about development, right? Because we just came out of a playtest on Saturday, and really, so far, development was about building the base game, right? There is so much under the hood in a multiplayer game like this. It's very easy to make a tank go around in a single-player scene, right? It's really not that hard. What's really hard is making things consistent, making sure there are, let's say, weird camera flicker bug if you flick your mouse too hard. Stuff like that can happen. How do you handle vehicles with multiple turrets? With limited gun arcs, there's so much variety, and when you want to bring all of that under the hood, like the M3D, for instance, you can rotate the turret separately, right? And you can fire the gun separately. You need the proper control mechanism for all of this to work.
Right.
Same for the BMD. It's somewhere over here. Let me just filter. There it is. This technically also has two separate turrets or weapon systems, right? We have the main gun, the 30mm, and we have the Fagot ATGM, right? And we have to build things in a way that we can maintain them long term, and in a way that we don't accidentally trip over our own feet and have to rebuild everything at a later point because we didn't put in the effort at the start.
Right.
That's how we're building this, right? So essentially, so far, we built the base game and we used playtests to find all of the major bugs, issues, fix stability, right? Servers are really stable now. We, of course, sometimes crashes occur, right? You have unique hardware setups, it just happens. But you can only find those when people actually crash the game. And then you can, get the logs and figure out why did this happen and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So we're not at a stage where we fine-tune in-game balance and reduce the reload on that vehicle by 2 seconds, on that vehicle by that. We don't do that yet. We're not fine-tuning maps. We just wanted to get the basics working, really.
Sure.
There's a little showcase for the ATGM. So, as you can see, we can switch between firing the main gun. Of course, we have crazy elevation since it's 30mm, right? So we can switch between these two. As you can see, we have the missile launcher. And we have the main gun.
Can you use them basically at the same time, or do you have to switch them for balance reasons?
Technically, at the moment, you can fire both of them at the same time. We might adjust that a little bit because it's like, one of these you fire obviously in a burst mode, right? And you don't fire the missile in a burst mode, right? You fire it like this.
Right. And because it is wire guided, you have that control with your cursor, which is super cool.
Yes. I mean, this one technically is Sackler's. I think it's beam riding. But obviously, all of those are things that are actually going to matter, right? Like, it sounds crazy, but there is a significant difference between a missile that is beam riding or one that is wire guided. The jammers, we all know the T-90 with the red eyes. Those are specifically dazzlers that were designed to intercept or essentially electromagnetically interfere with early ATGMs by essentially blinding the operator or the observation unit, so it couldn't see where the missile was going, right?
The missile doesn't know where it is. So are you gonna
Yes.
model that? Because I know you intend to have, it's not just a like World War II and Cold War game. It's gonna go from like, there's
World War One all the way to modern, really.
So can you show them an example of a more? This is quite modern as well, and having the missiles is sick. Oh, here we go, rank 14.
Yeah, I mean the T-72A isn't that modern, right? It's still used, right? I think the most modern one we have, technically speaking, is going to be the Leopard 2A6. Like, this is actually still in service with the German armed forces like this, right? And obviously it's a bit faster and everything, and as you can see, the ammunition has significantly higher performance. Like, the numbers are a bit higher than what we're used to in World War II.
Somebody's asking, are we going to include Indian tanks in the ONTOS?
I think the ONTOS it's a given, right? It has way too much meme value. It's just too funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, later down the tracks, Indian tanks are absolutely planned, right? I mean, they're mostly Indian or Soviet based, but they have some unique developments, essentially branching off of those bases. And yeah, absolutely gonna happen. I just can't tell you when at the moment.
Yeah. That's what the Kickstarter's for. We gotta get some more support rolling and
yeah. About the Kickstarter, right? So essentially, the idea is what we mentioned before is there are collectors vehicles, right? And we really want to set ourselves apart from the standard in the game industry, right? We don't sell premium tanks, we sell collectors vehicles, and a good example is here. So you can see these are very similar, right? This is the A34. It's basically the last T-34 prototype. And as you can see, it has a much shorter gun. It's the L11. And it's also significantly less powerful than the long F-34. And on top of that, this one has a bulge down here. So it doesn't have the flat pike nose of the T-34. And it also doesn't have the additional armor. Like, if you check here, you have like around 100 armor line of sight. That's because this weld down here is actually reinforced. It's filled out with material. This is not the case for the early A34. You have around 40 mils here.
Right.
So essentially, it's a T-34 with less armor, but if you look at the top speed, it's incredibly high. So it's basically a faster T-34 that trades firepower and armor for improved mobility. That's really what it is. And it's not better, I would argue it's a bit harder to play than the regular T-34. You can't tank as much, really. You don't have the applique, right? You don't have the extra armor on the turret, you'd have a weaker gun. You don't have as much pen, you have more weak points. But it works in its own right, and it's a collector, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, Rollick, there's no limit. We'll have tanks from, like, World War I all the way through to modern day, so when it comes to ensuring it's balanced, of course, that's what's important later down the line, but they have a 2A6 there's no reason they couldn't add, like, the Booker, you know?
Yes, it's already penciled in for later.
Hell yeah.
It's just that we have to, and like, I really like the new water here, right? I'll be honest. I think it looks really good.
It looks really good. That's really nice. Desert map is my favorite so far. Ooh, that looks good, yeah.
The other map is scheduled to get a big rework, right? Essentially, the problem with the Alps map is we just tried something with the center hill, and the issue is it's too large, right? It's too large to the point that it's a bit obstructive, and it slows gameplay down, rather than essentially provide an extra tactical choice avenue, right?
Yeah.
And that sort of leads me into, I guess, a bit of a roadmap, right? It's really what we're planning for the winter. We have a few points that we learned from the playtests. We've already implemented a lot of feedback from the playtests, right? Like, we've consistently patched things where essentially half of the changes we made are purely thanks to player feedback, right?
What is one of the biggest player feedbacks that you got from the last few rounds of tests that you've implemented changes on?
I think recently the major gripe, I'd say, or the major thing that needs reworks is driving physics, simply because the physics system is quite complicated or quite complex because it's designed to accommodate a very wide range of things later down the track, right?
Sure.
So we're not going to stop at, like, that was a really bad shot. Like, the angle was so bad.
Sometimes you just gotta whiff your shit, bro.
Yeah,
like,
no, I'm so embarrassed by that shot. I'll admit
that's like
it.
a Sophie shot right there, brother, where you're just like, and you calculate the worst possible option, so...
You can actually punch through the matlet on the SMK. You just have to aim really carefully, but you can... that was a bit too high. Struggling with gun depression, the Soviet problem that's always there, basically, right?
Yeah. No, I'm
Yes, there we
super
go.
excited. I can't wait, like...
The suit is a bit weaker on that tank.
I want this game to be out so that I can play it all the time.
There we go. As you can see, like, if you aim carefully, you can pen. It can be a bit hard to estimate silhouettes, right? I mean,
Right.
you could see me struggling, and I built most of these vehicles, but you know.
But that's part of the challenge. The challenge is fun, and so long as you're rewarded because you did pick the
Yes.
right thing, you didn't like. It's even harder to kind of figure it out when your shot like
Yeah,
is
damn it.
in the outer half of the circle. 70% of the time.
Yes. Like, it's the thing, like, you really underestimate how thick armor sometimes is, right? The side skirts may be a little thicker at the moment than they should on the Panzer III. I gotta double check that, but basically, if you have like a double 30-degree angle, you're probably not gonna pen that a lot of the time, right? And this KV-1 is just like, he probably has a dead driver. He's not moving, right? Like, he's getting shot up. There you go. So essentially, driving physics are currently the biggest thing to be changed, and over the playtests we've already made a lot of changes, right? We've fine-tuned a lot of things. The thing that's specifically problematic with vehicle physics is the traction, or the system that calculates traction between the vehicle and the ground, right? That's the problem. And when you get corner cases like very fast and light vehicles like the BT7, or something super heavy and super slow like the Mouse, then it can happen that under certain circumstances it's hard to maneuver, right? And people essentially expect I press a button and the vehicle does something, and if you you're not a developer, right? You may not know essentially the trick to, sort of rev up the engine and then move around that to essentially work around the momentum in the drivetrain. And of course, it should be intuitive, right? And that's why we're reworking that. Essentially, the traction system is causing all of the issues, and it is a temporary system at the moment. It's not in the final state, and that's really penciled in for this winter, right? The next thing is going to be, of course, there will be more vehicles, right? There's going to be a new game launcher, because the current one doesn't support Linux. And of course, we want to support Linux gamers, right? And we're going to get that sorted. The Alps map is going to get a rework, right? The hill essentially is going to be squished down, and it will completely change the flow of the map.
Cool.
And there's also going to be a UI overhaul, because at the moment, like, we have a certain standard convention, right? We know there's vehicles at the bottom, stats on the right-hand side, other stuff up here. It's just because all of this slowly grew over a significant amount of time into what it is now. A lot of the parts aren't perfectly consistent with one another. And we just want to unify that and make a bit of a cleaner, unified design, so people, can also navigate it a bit easier, right? I think some parts aren't perfect right now, and we have a bunch of feedback written down, and we're essentially gonna look at that and find a better solution for how certain buttons are arranged, basically, right?
Well, that's awesome. I think that's awesome. You guys have a great vision. I want this game to be out like today. I still think I think it's really playable as is. Like, I could no life this just like the old days for 6, 8, 11 hours at a time. I wish the tests were long so I could properly no life them. The M103 was my favorite from last time. We'll take a look at the M103, and then it's getting late on your end, so I'll let you go after that, and then I think I'll do a little bit of streaming on Twitch with this latest mode as well later. But I mean, I don't know. The tests have been... Everybody's been... makes comments and stuff on my Discords and my channels, and a lot of my regulars are super into it. So I know that you had mentioned previously the M103 isn't gonna be matched with the mouse in the future, but that's what we need.
Yes.
Just time to flesh out more vehicles, time to flesh out the trees. But for the test, it actually works pretty well. You know.
Like, the thing is, at the moment, the reason why the M103 is here is simply because the M103 was easier to build. It was just easier to source essentially accurate information for it.
Right.
And that's literally why we built the M103 first, right? It's going to be replaced by the T43. The T43 is essentially like the baby M103. You could argue it has a slightly different gun. It has a muzzle brake, and just things are a little different. Like the turret is a little different. It has thinner armor actually, and it also doesn't get the high performance rounds that the M103 gets. I mean, this doesn't get the super high performance rounds either, but I mean, you can see this like 400 pen, right?
Yeah, so I think by the time you get around to making the A2, you could probably improve that and have it be like a little bit of a rank higher as well, even if you wanted.
That's really the sort of early Cold War heavy tanks, like Conqueror, T10. Those are essentially their own bracket, because something like a Conqueror would just bully a mouse.
It's,
right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems I think that exists in the current tank games is which vehicles see which vehicles. +2, -2 is something that, like, like, even just historically authentic is it's a whole nother thing to talk about, but then also just balance-wise, like, I just don't think the +2, -2 feels as good as in this game during the test when, you know, +1, -1 or same same rank matchmaker, just, it's like challenging in a correct way. It's like, it's really nice, and it's something that I know like World of Tanks players have been asking for a really long time, and then basically receiving some sort of like, well, no, the information says it's fine, but it's, you know, it's just a different idea of balance and player experience, but I think it's quite comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, our matchmaking is +-1 for two reasons. One is simply because, like, power levels just work differently, right? Our tanks are balanced differently, and armor is much more relevant. So, essentially, facing a Tiger with something like a, I don't know, a vehicle that has like a 76 or something is a significantly different fight than in World of Tanks or War Thunder, right? Like a Sherman 76 can lol pen a Tiger from 1.5 kilometers in War Thunder, right? Which is not necessarily how it happened in real life, right? That's very, very far away, I would argue. And simply the way these games choose to represent their vehicles specifically just makes things work for them specifically, right? But it doesn't mean it works in general or it's necessarily a good idea, I would argue, right?
Yeah. Right on. Well, I think, like I said, it's getting a bit late by your end, and I think that's a pretty good overview for a short live. And then I want to jump in and play some of this mode. The PvE like 4v4 is really interesting. So I want to give that a shot.
Yeah, they're a lot more dynamic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we had a little scenario where the mouse murdered their own eyes too, I think, because the eyes too fell into the water, and I have a sneaking suspicion that was right when the mouse drove over. But
coincidence, allegedly, you know. Is there anything else you want to share that you think like people want to hear about it that you're really, really excited to begin work on implementing over the next couple months? Now that we've got like Kickstarter live and people can see kind of the outline of your project, is there anything that you are really excited about being able to implement soon?
I mean, to be honest, because it's a pet peeve of mine, vehicle physics, like I really just want to address that. It's hard to address or adjust a core system when you have ongoing playtests, right? When you have short iterations between tests. I can't start tearing apart an internal system like that and then like, oh, sorry guys, you can't drive this time around. I can't do that, obviously, right? So I have to make those changes during a time when there is, you know, a bit of a breather for everyone. And that's exactly what this winter is going to be. Cool. And I'm pretty confident that by next year, Q1 next year, you won't be able to recognize this game anymore.
Right on. So what's the best way, if people are interested and, you know, we're not going to have tests for a little bit because you're getting in here overhauling kind of that big core system, what are some of the best ways to support Steeleases in the meantime?
Well, the easiest and most direct way is to go on Kickstarter, have a look at what we're offering. We're offering a bunch of unique collector's vehicles. These vehicles will not be available for a significant amount of time after launch. I don't want to say they won't be available ever, because a lot of people will be upset by that, right? But I think it's really fair to give people who support on Kickstarter essentially early access by a year to those vehicles. And tell your friends, tell your pets, and yeah, come join our Discord community, give feedback, and join in on the fun, really.
Yeah, right on. Okay, so I will, I'll post all the links for the social media, for the Kickstarter, everything down in the description, and then I'm gonna go on Twitch and play some of the update. So thank you so much for your time and for showcasing a little bit of this for everybody. I'm bummed that I had to miss out on the test yesterday, but now I want to see what's new since the last one, and I hope you have a really good end of your weekend and a very busy week with the hamsters and their wheels getting started on everything. So thank you Bulldog, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye.
All right, see you. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go over on Twitch by the end of this video, but like I said, I'll include all the information for Steel Aces and all the links and stuff like that in the description of this video. It's kind of short, it's kind of random, but it was like, you know what? I missed the test, but let's talk about it. So if this looks as fun as it looks like it is in a demonstration, I promise you the tests are a blast, and I recommend that you get in on the next one, whenever that's going to be. So I'll be looking forward to that particular announcement, and in the meantime, I'm going to go play a little bit, have some fun. Thanks again to Bulldog, and hats off to the Steel Aces team for making... This is so fun. Every time there's a test, I get addicted. I want to play for longer. I hope you guys are as hyped about it as me. So again, the community blasted the Kickstarter goal out in just 17 hours, and I think that speaks to just how much people want something different. The existing games they have their pros and the fun things about them, but there's also some pain points that the community that I know that I've streamed to for like 10 years has just kind of reached their limit with, and so I'm excited for what Steel Aces brings, and hats off again to the dev crew. Thank you guys for watching. Come join me on Twitch, and